Hey, hi everybody. Yeah, I've never done a live stream, but um, I had some things I wanted to say, friends and family. Nothing's wrong with me. It's or anything like that. I just been having some things I want to talk about. First of all, I want to tell you that I all love you. Everybody on my social media page, they're all people that mean something to me. You know, really everybody is in my heart, but when I was growing up, when I was growing up, I was a pretty shy kid, so I didn't. This live stream is gonna be kind of off the rails. It's gonna be. I'll try to make it long enough to not be scripted, which is, I'm. Yeah, anybody knows me knows me. I was pretty shy growing up, and I'm not too shy anymore. But I got some things that I hold back. So this is, I want to kind of tell my story, get it off my chest, and you know, because what's love other than telling the truth, you know? And there's two things that guided me in my life, and some of the things I'm gonna say are not gonna be easy, but I need to say them. I've seen too many people that aren't around anymore that I would have liked to talk to them. Some of them from school, some of them from work, some of them family. And I think if we truly love each other, we'll have these talks. So this is my talk to all of you. And if it gets shared, that's because I love all of them too. I don't even know them, but I still love them. But like I'm saying, this can be a while because it's got to go off the rails. It can't be, I, you know, I can't have any preconceived notions on what I'm going to say. But I do want to start with I love you guys. And let's get started. So, there's two things that always seem to rule me. And I'm just going to tell it like it is, fear and love. And there's always a battle inside of me over, fear and, and love. And I'd like to say that love always will win that fight, but it's not true. Now anybody brought up in this story that's not meant to villainize or anything. I'm just gonna tell it like it is, and anything that's happened. Um, I'm not gonna get anything graphic or anything like that. There's nothing, thankfully, nothing like that is really haunted me. But I tell you what, fear has haunted me, and I encountered fear early on. I mean, way early on. I remember, I was always kind of a scaredy cat. I was shy. Everybody knows me from way back, knows how shy I was. We have company over. I would go hide. I'd go find if I'm a little kid, I would go hide like in a cabinet or a closet, whatever. I remember I just have this fear in me. And it was irrational. I had no idea why it was there. And we'll get to that later. But as I grew up, there's some special people there in my life. And all you are special to me. Don't get me wrong. You're here. You're special to me. I click on that friend thing. It's because you're in my heart. And that's kind of where that all started. But you know, there are people placed in my life who showed me something. It's like, you got that scaredy cat. You got that kind person who just want to bring that cat out and show it that it's okay. And there's people in my life early on that were like that, whether it's the Hanson family or some of the kids at Monroe and junior high school, Meredith. Some people I work with, good people, want me to get out there, not be afraid. And that's love fighting that fear. And it was always a challenge back and forth. So I became pretty, I started doing stuff to prove to myself that I wasn't afraid. Now, really, there's only one thing that conquers fear, and that's love. But I, but I didn't know that. I didn't have any wisdom with that, and to me, love was heartbreaking. I mean, my parents. I remember a time when I was a kid and they loved each other. It was my stepmom raised me, but I don't want to get too far into names. But I remember a time when they loved each other. I seen that love turn into something bitter, painful, and heartbreaking. As a kid, I'm giving you a kid's perspective, how I remember it. Some of the stuff in here, some people might disagree with, but I'm giving you my perspective. I mean, we each have a glass, and it fills with time and with, let's say, it's kind of like drops of rain where they fall into the glass, and then early on, at that very bottom, is the very core part of you, and those drop in there and they ripple into each other, and time starts for you. And so it's my perspective from my glass, and that so love to me, I didn't understand it. I was but I was shy. I was trying to figure it out. I trust it, trying to figure it out, and but I run into these people who, I didn't understand it, but they love me no matter what. And my friends, I mean, all you in school were so good to me, so kind to me, and I didn't understand why. Maybe somehow you knew, because I was so shy that I need that unconditional love, and a lot of you gave it to me. And if you're on this, because could have been just a moment of kindness, and and when you're really going through it, those acts of kindness can be what keep people going. And I don't want to get emotional here, but I didn't always do for people what you all did for me. I don't want to get emotional, but there's times where my fear kept me from doing what you guys did for me. And I'm okay. I'm just emotional because it's love. It's because I remember the kindness in the hallways of school, the work camaraderie and friendship, the unconditional love that many of you show for me. Now, whether you knew it or not, that's what it was, and it was filling my glass with love. But there was another mixture that was always there going, and so you guys didn't add to it, but there was fear, and and so that fear, that well, I was going to deal with that, but I wasn't going to deal. I was going to deal with that my own ways. You know, I tried to, a teenager, put myself out there. You know, try to be attempts to be little brave. You know, and I was still, I was still pretty quiet. You guys knew me back in high school. You knew I was pretty quiet and stuff, and I still had a lot of fear. I get people trying to get me to break out of that fear, like Brian Williams and yeah, he passed away last year. Sorry, that was a hard one, but I try to keep it together. I had some good friends pass, and each of you, are in my heart. So I want to continue on that. Try not to get too emotional, but I'm sorry. I just a second. I don't not to. All right, let's continue on. I shouldn't have brought it crying because I knew I was going to cry, but I always did things to face my fear. Whether it's, I got into Little League. I was kind of good at it. Should have stuck with baseball. I really was good at baseball. I really liked it. Met some good friends. So my best friend, well, I had several best friends. Big, big drops of love in my life in the glass. Whether it's Jason or Johnny or Francisco. I don't want to get into names here because I don't want to say that one was better than the other, because you all filled my glass with love. And but there was there's a lot of you showed me a lot of love. And well, but I was still gonna prove to fear who I thought was part of myself. That's just how it was. It's so early. My first memory is this fear. And we'll get into that, but I remember I always did things. I joined some sports, try to talk to girls, even though I would shake like a leaf talking to girls. I don't know why I was like that, but I was. It's the way I was. And but I remember when I was a kid, I used to have a lot of dreams. Now some people, when I say some of the stuff I'm gonna say, you're gonna think I'm a little, maybe certain kind of way, but I hope you know that I'm just telling it like it is, and I don't understand it all. But when I was a kid, I had imagination. Imagination is where I used to escape into everything. And I remember I used to have some bad dreams though. Don't get me wrong, I had bad dreams, and but I also had some different ones, and a couple of them stick out. A couple of them stick out in my life, and one of them, we lived just a little east of Beaverdale here in Des Moines, and I remember living this house on 30th Street, and I remember we had this tree out front, and I used to climb in it, but I never go that high. No, I kind of, like I said, I was being kind of afraid of cat, but maybe that one kept me out of trouble because it got pretty high on that tree. So I just go to the bottom. I used to sit in the branch. I had a special branch I sat in, and it's still there. I can't believe it. I mean, it's old, but it's still there. I drove by it. I used to sit in this branch, and it was almost like a chair, and I'd sit there and daydream all day long. And but I never climbed up in that tree. And one day I had a weird dream. I'm going to tell you, weird dream. But I remember, like I said, this is going to maybe get a little weird, but I love you guys. I'm going to tell you the truth. And some of you guys have had some things happen. So I was sleeping. And next thing I know, I'm in my room and the lights are out. But I'm way up near the ceiling. So I'm like, I didn't know I was dreaming, but I was, and I thought back on it later. And I look back and I can see my brother in the bunk bed, myself. And next thing I know, that dream, I go right through the roof of the house. And I go up in the tree. I'm looking down and there's a nest. It's got a few blue eggs in it in a certain spot. And then it left there and went into the clouds and went over mountains and just moved. That dream moved. And I landed on this hilltop way far away. And there's all these brick buildings. They looked a certain way. And I don't know why it just stuck in my mind. But then boom, it was over. So, so I'd have some dreams like that. But I also had a lot of bad dreams. But to face my fears, I do things like I joined the Marines. Me and Brian, DeMarco, TJ, we all joined the Marines. I didn't know what to do after high school. It seemed like a good idea. My dad was gonna, kick me out of the house as just got out of high school or getting out of high school soon. And I was like, I'm gonna show you. I'm gonna join the Marines. And it's like, oh, like, okay. I had no idea what I was getting into, but I did. And, and, the Marines it was all right. It wasn't me. I mean, it was, it was, uh, it was violent. It was prideful. It was a lot of things that I was patriotic. I probably was, my dad, he was from Cuba and he was very patriotic because of what he fled from coming here to the States, the communism and the, and, so I grew up with a lot of patriotism, a lot. And, there's some wonderful things about this country. I don't want to get into politics. We might, or anything like that. This is not, I don't want any division here. I'm just, trying to speak from my heart. And, but he loved this country and it was a different time. It was different. Things have moved pretty quick. I don't want to get into all that. I don't want to get into conspiracy theory or anything like that, but it's different. You guys know how it is. So, I always did things to kind of challenge myself to not be afraid. And it was, and I grew in my confidence of myself. And I remember after the active duty part of the Marines, and we'll get back to some stories in there. I got some stories. Some of you probably think I'm crazy with some of these stories, but they're true. I love you, and I'm not going to lie to you. But I remember I worked at the newspaper. It was downtown. I worked with Matt, a guy I went to school with who recently passed away. Matt Neal. I worked with him down there. And it was my first real job. I got Taco Bell in high school, but I worked at the Des Moines Register downtown. And it was a good job. Interest. It was just like the Daily Planet in Superman before the internet. newsroom, everybody running around. And it was it was good, but I started to see, and I'm not going to get into conspiracy, but there seemed to be a script a narrative that they wanted. I'd see people come in trying to want to get this story or that story, or you go in the editorial office. I was a gopher. That's what I did. I took people's packages around. I got, for the tradesmen, I would go get, take the truck and go get parts. And then, it was a neat place. Old building, really old building. 120, 130 years old building. Really old, but it was neat. And, but I had my encounter with a big thing that happened in my life that the first time that fear, the first time that fear kind of really took hold, and I remember I was working at that newspaper, back in the 90s. And some of this stuff you guys might not want to hear, but it's the truth. And I remember I was a kid, early 20s, and I remember all the people in the newspaper used to gather outside during smoke break and talk, and it was downtown near yeah, it was weird having a newspaper downtown. I mean, you see when they pull the semis in and out, stop all the traffic. So yeah, so I remember there's a parking ramp across the street. It's still there. The buildings, the newspaper's still there too. It's an apartment now, but I remember this guy walks by, this homeless guy, and he yeah, he was crying, and he had this, and there was a bunch of us out there, and this homeless guy, he was crying, and we all looked at each other. This guy was upset. I mean, he was he was red faced, crying, and he was in so much pain. And I remember, I never forget. Hi Jacob, I'm just telling kind of a story about my life. Thank you for coming. If you drop out, that's not. I won't take offense. I love you, and I'm just telling the story. So. So he walks by, and none of us say nothing to him. And I remember he looked me right when he walked by, and he was about it. He looked me right in the eyes, and it just, there was so much pain that it really made it really made I never forget it. And so he walked by, and I don't say nothing to him, because that fear popped in. The fear of nobody else said nothing to him. Nobody else. So I did what everybody else did because of that fear, and I didn't say nothing to him. So I went back inside to go to the bathroom, come back out in a couple minutes, and there's people walking inside. Everybody looks kind of sick on their face. They look upset. Something just happened. I walk out to the street, and there's that man who just walked by me. And he had went to the top of the parking ramp, and he had jumped off. And the guy was dead right in front of me and laying in the street. It was, and it was weird. There was nobody, nothing around, and there was just him laying there in the street, and he was dead. And I remember this man from the principal building comes by, and he's eating popcorn. He walks up, looks down at this man, and he just almost shrugs his shoulders. He's eating his popcorn. He pauses as he gets close, and then standing right there, he throws the popcorn in his mouth and continues about his day. And I never forgot, I always, so that's where fear betrays you. I felt I had a lot of guilt over talking to that man. Would it have made a difference? And So there's been this is a hard thing to talk about things in your life, because you got to talk about the good and the bad. You got to talk about the love and the fear, and you got to get off rails, and it's got to be you got you got to talk long enough so you're off script. And that was a very I'm not gonna say a defining moment, but it was a moment of shame in my life when I never said nothing to him, and I told myself I'd never be in that position again. But so I always did things to face my fears from the military. Then I got into working with electricity and all kinds of stuff, and and I thought I'd become a pretty brave person, and I worked my way through. I worked my way through up the ladder. I grew up very poor, very poor. I mean, there was some fear there too, because I went to a school where people had money. I mean, people had a lot of money, and I was poor. We had low we had the government gave us a house in a nice neighborhood when I was a teenager after my parents got divorced, and I didn't want all my friends knowing how poor I was. I mean, I used to get my clothes out of donated from a garbage bag. My friend in Cisco joked because he knew he was an insider. He knew I was poor. He was an insider, and he knew that he'd make a joke about. He still does to this day about government cheese. He'd ask, so I'm like, okay, but I grew up poor, and there was a lot of shame about that. So I kind of kept some of you people on my friends list away because I was ashamed of that, and that's fear again. Fear kept me away from meeting a lot of good people. Now fear will try to tell you that it's going to keep you safe. But then my first big betrayal and fear was that man that jumped off that building. So fear will fear is it's a bad comfort, and but there's something else. Yeah. So on the flip side, there's love, and love to me seemed like it was the opposite of that. Love gets you hurt. Love I felt that love would only disappoint you, and some of that maybe I was a little jaded because of what happened with my parents and stuff, but so I had it. I'm getting to the point, but I had it upside down. But I didn't really. It took me a long time to realize that, and so I built up my skill sets. I built up a defense. My fear became my defense, and I could face. If I listened to fear, it would teach me everything that I needed to know about being protective, and so that fear would manifest and some bad stuff had happened because fear would show me the way, and not love. But there's several times that that love showed me a little bit that it was better than fear. But I'd steer everything go back to fear. I had my kids, and I love them, but I had a lot of fear. What am I gonna do for these kids? My first wife, she took off. She had a lot of problems, and she's okay now. But I mean, I had my problems too. Don't get me wrong, but you got that your kid born, and there's that love pours in, but then that fear always tries to creep its way in. And so I was like, okay. I looked around, I examined. Okay, oh, I got to get my skills up. I got to make money and make sure these kids are okay, and and so I started my journey on and building my skill sets up, and I got to make my own. I'm gonna protect these children from make sure they got what they need, and I started bringing my skill sets up and stuff like that, So when it got to the point by the time, you know, I was, by the time I was in my early 40s, I had really went from being a very poor kid with who was shy and didn't do that well in school. Some of it because of that, but I was in my imagination. I that's the where I lived at is my imagination when I was a kid. So I was kind of um, I didn't do that well in school, and so but suddenly I became good. I became good at electrical controls and automation. I was like, oh man, I'm finally good. So I got this pride creeping in. First, I got the pride. I creeped up on my, it creeped up on me, and I didn't realize that. I didn't see pride as a bad thing. Don't get me wrong. I didn't see, you know, uh, I came from what you call a very proud family, and so pride didn't seem like a bad thing to me. But well, sorry, I might get a little off track here, but I'm just gonna keep going. We'll see. Um, I got a kind of a point I want to get to, but you know, so my wife and I, we've been together a long time, and we both struggled a lot. We didn't make a lot of money. We had 6 kids. We're kind of like a Brady Bunch, and we had 6 kids, and we both grew up poor. So it's not like we had money waiting for us in the bank. We, started at a deficit, let's say, and but we had built we built a defense. Hers based on love, I believe. Mine based on fear. But either way, we were I thought that money would be the answer to everything. So we did really well. I mean, by the time I was in my 40s, we were probably making near double six-figure income, you know, and I thought, that's my protection. I done really good with listening to fear. I done really good with it. And my kids, one of the things that fear kept me from doing is spending more time with them. I mean, I was I'm gonna say I was a workaholic, but yeah, I spent a lot of time at work, and I liked what I did, but it was kind of it was one of the things that one of the biggest regrets is not spending enough time with my kids. And so what happened is that they didn't see me a lot. That's just the way it was. They didn't see me a lot. I was always at work. Always at work, and that became the source of that really was a focus of my life for a while, was just work. And I all of my identity was wrapped up in it. My title. So my title was really important to me. And I remember as I worked on my skills, I got hired in a engineering department. It's like, oh, and I remember I got this fancy tag, Tony Acevedo, electrical engineering tech. So I worked as electrical engineer. So I thought, oh, I'm just a smart guy. But oh boy. So, but I thought I was. I remember the pride creeped up. Look, this poor kid. Look, he's making good money. Well, I don't want to get. I want to get back to what I want to talk about, and then I guess we'll get through this. But I thought, well, so I started making all that money, and I was doing $500 a night hotel rooms. I was eating the best food. I started buying. I mean, I spent $100,000 a year on cars. I was just on nice, sports cars, muscle car. I started. So I started. my kids are just leaving the house, and I start filling my life with all this stuff as they're leaving. And it was more and more. And, the thing is, that stuff that you think it's weird because I never had anything. I thought, because I grew up poor. And I remember when I was a kid, I'd be happy with a stick. I think I could turn a stick into anything. It'd be a coolest thing. I could have a stick and it could be about anything. But I wasn't like a kid anymore. There wasn't time. I didn't have time to be foolish like that. But really, looking back, I wish I would have been happy with that, because I would have went and played with my children more and been back in their space, in their world, and happy with a stick, happy with doing an imagination with my kids. And I was too serious for that. So I had all these adult toys, and that kid was kind of, that kid, I want to be nothing to do with that kid. Look, that kid was full of fear, but I had on my own built up. I didn't need to be afraid of anything. I could do it all on my own strength, I could do it. And then, I remember when, now COVID was no joke. I remember, and so that COVID hit, not joking around about it, I didn't think it'd do nothing. I mean, I'd joke around. I remember I had to be on Facebook. I did a bottle of Corona, make jokes about it. And then I was one of the first people in the area to get sick. And I remember, when I go and got my test, my COVID test, they wouldn't even, I wasn't running a high temperature. They wouldn't even want to give me the test because, well, we haven't had anybody test positive. You don't run a temperature. So I had to go looking at other places. I get a test, I'm positive. And I didn't think much of it. I'm like, oh, I'm going to get some time off here. And, I'm going to get some time off. And, I got sick. I got real sick. And I ended up with getting pneumonia a couple times. I had a lung collapse. And I was pretty bad off. But the funny thing is, that fear kind of kept me. I didn't even like going to the doctor. I went. It's pretty, and they're, it's kind of fun. I get into all that. But either way, I was pretty sick. And all of a sudden, it was a little kink in that protection I had. That fear wasn't, my friend anymore. That it didn't keep me on the edge, keep me on the edge of stuff. And so I started getting better. It took a while. My career took a slump, being sick and stuff. And but I wanted to get back to that. But just as I was thinking about getting back to that, I had a bad reaction to the vaccine. It's raining outside, so if it gets loud in this, where I'm at, I'm in a camper right now. So, so I got that shot, and I guess my body didn't react to it well. And I got sick. I just dropped one day, a week after I got that shot, and went to the doctor, and they're like, oh, they thought I had cancer. They took a CAT scan. They're like, your lymph nodes or your whole body are swollen. You got the bone lesions. They're sure I had cancer. Absolutely, like, cancer? What? There it is, another kink in that armor of fear I was wearing. It's like, wait a second. This can't be. Not me. And the funny thing is, the painful truth is everybody seemed to back away from me, but maybe that's the walls closing in when you're everything you thought was important you didn't invest in, you're suddenly realizing. You're reaching out to people and they're kind of backing off a little bit. And I don't, and it's not them. It was me. It was my own walls closing in on me. I started reclusing. I was like, so I ended up uh, going to college here in Des Moines. I ended up, they were like, well, it's got the indicators of cancer and stuff, but we can't. They're doing biopsies trying to find it. They're like, they got to get a good sample before they do chemotherapy and stuff. So, and this is not a story. I'm not saying this story because I'm dying or nothing. I'm just telling a story. So I end up going. They sent me to Mayo Clinic. I was like, oh, that's famous. They're gonna send me there. They'll figure it out. So I go up there, and they're doing all kinds of bone biopsies and stuff. And I lost a lot of weight, and they're doing a PET scan. I'm glowing like a Christmas tree. So they said we're 95% sure you had cancer. It's like, oh boy, and so it was a rough time. All that protection, that fear was now eating me up. It wasn't helping me. And the love, I guess that's when that started taking over. I had certain people in my life, uh, Andrea, my mom. That's my mom. I have a biological mom. I love her. Andrea, she was my mom growing up, and my dad, and some of my kids. Some of my kids kind of backed off because I didn't put what I needed into those relationships because I was so busy working, and so they, maybe they had their own fears because that's what I taught them. And but I recluse. I was alone. I was like, I didn't know if I was going to live or I was going to die or what, but so we're going to Rochester for like 8 months, going to Mayo Clinic trying to find out. They're trying to get to the bottom of it. They're like, well, we're just gonna maybe have to wait. We maybe have to wait and see, because some of it, if it's slow cancer and it progresses, they're gonna have to. Sometimes it's hard to find. It had manifested in a way that they knew something was off, something was really wrong. But I had 200 bone lesions. I was messed up. I was in, couldn't barely eat anything. So all of a sudden, about 8 months into it, my legs, and I always felt like a toothache when you got some messed up bones, but my legs started hurting, and like really bad, like a really bad toothache. And I'm like, oh man, this is probably it. This is probably it. They're gonna. So we run up to Mayo Clinic, and they go ahead, and they're gonna do a PET scan. They can see if it's going crazy or not in that PET scan. It's just glow. Whatever's messed up, whatever's going hyperactive, it'll glow on that PET scan. So they go on there. And I had one before and it was pretty bad, but it wasn't that. But I was expecting when I go up there with this kind of pain that it's going to be bad. It's going to be some bad news. So I go up there, they do that scan, and there was nothing there. There was like, literally, I've been going for months. Every month I'd go. Every month it was just not getting better. They went there and it was just the faintest glow in one little spot from looking, my whole skeleton looked like a Christmas tree. And they said, well, we don't know why we don't know, this happens sometimes. They didn't know what to say. And I got all my numbers. I had 200 and some tests, blood tests, bone biopsies. There was crazy over that year. And all those numbers started crashing. And within a month or so, maybe it's two months, all my test results I was in normal range. I remember watching it steadily drop to normal. They had these bars, they normal, and all my stuff was not normal. It was way out there. Some of it, like my my blood thickness, all that from the proteins and stuff was super, like super high. Like, so, but all of a sudden everything was normal. I was weak from being in bed so much and stuff, but I was like, my first thought, I got to get my career back. I'm going to be better than ever. And I was like, I get, I hit the peak of my career, and then I got to get back. I'm going to be better than ever, because that's that was pride kicking in. That was my pride kicking in, because you know. So I remember I had some time off. I had a lot of time off, and I remember now as far as faith goes, I wasn't. I knew people were praying for me, but faith was a thing for me that wasn't. I didn't know what to think about that. I really didn't know what to think about. I went to church off and on as a kid. I grew up, Catholic, but I would kneel down and pray because, one, everybody else is doing it, and I was like, that fear is looking around. I'm looking around. I'm like, I better get down. I'm gonna stick out. Every once in a while, though, I feel something, but I wasn't sure. I was being fraidy cat, which that's what I'd say I was. I was the only good fear I probably had was I was afraid that if it was real, if he exists, and I better be careful. I better just be careful, just in case he is real. But I had this friend of mine, and he lived up in Michigan, and we went way back, and he was one of the ones I didn't have to be afraid cat around. There was just love there, so I wasn't a fraidy cat with him. So I remember, though, he was kind of like me, even less of a believer in me, because he didn't even have that fear of maybe. And he all of a sudden it changed, because I had a lot of time on my hands, so I was kind of looking, seeing what people are up to. And my friend, Dan's his name, but him and his wife had this roommate, come in. Things are expensive, so people bring some roommates in, and all of a sudden he was posting stuff on the Bible and the gospel, to me all that stuff seemed fake. My whole life, all that stuff seemed fake. I don't want to talk. In telling stuff, I'm just telling a story. I don't want to talk bad about any of my family or friends. I love all of them, but this is my truth. And my truth is, my dad used to take me to church. When I was a teenager, we went to Catholic church, and after church, he would stop by Reader's World, and he would get a dirty magazine right after church. And I'd go back and do the walk of shame, hang in my head, walk through that section, and go get a comic book. And, and I'm not blaming him, because I seen the whole world like this. The whole world, everybody would say one thing but do another thing. And, and I just never I viewed it as kind of fake. Kind of people trying to manipulate people. I did not have a good view on faith and religion. I tried to read the Bible. And, so there's that. But my friend Dan, he all of a sudden he was what I would call a holy roller. Now, I mean, we're talking straight up atheist, the holy roller. I'm like, oh boy, what has happened to him? So I decided to, okay, I'm gonna, you got no time. You start kind of meddling sometimes, and I was gonna investigate. I had some time. I was on the mend. I was looking for work, get back in the saddle again, and so I decided. I just said, okay, I got this friend Bonnie on there. And I'm gonna hit her up, because she's the one I'm gonna get. Okay, what kind of woman is she? She taking over my friend's life. What is she doing? She changed him. I liked him the way he was. He was an imaginary friend like me. I mean, in the imagination. So she's a nice gal, pretty nice, and pretty nice lady, but still I had to go. So I drove up there. So I drove up there, and I just started reading the Bible. You know, I was a little curious. I had a lot of time on my hands. So I go up there, and my friend Dan, I say, he's my friend. I'm going to, establish my dominance over the friendship, make sure he's okay. So I get there, and he's happier than ever. He's very independent thinking, strong, happy. I was like, okay, well, all right, I'm going to keep going to see where this is going. So I was like, he invites me out in the patio, and to talk. And we're talking about high school, and it's this sentimental. I got this sentimental currency with him over whatever's going on. And it's like, I got that, you got that, you think you step into your friend's life because you got this past with them. So that's when I'm going back to that. I'm talking to him about high school, talking about all the things we used to do, and we're talking. And so Bonnie comes out, and it's on the patio. She's about 10 feet away, and she starts doing some prayer. And I didn't think anything of it. I'm still talking to Dan. So then all of a sudden, I feel this like a pushing, like standing in a river. I remember standing in some, we all stood in a river before, and it's like a pushing. It felt like I was standing in a river, but I wasn't. I was trying to ignore it. And I don't know why on earth I would try to ignore it, but I was. And I was trying to talk to Dan, but after a while, it was so powerful, and something in me almost felt dizzy. I didn't know what was going on. And after a while, I guess I wasn't even talking to him. I was just, he could see I was just kind of thinking. I was, kind of not really looking at anybody, kind of just feeling what I was feeling. Like, what is that? And I didn't know the conversation had stopped. So I turned my head, and I see that this woman, she's got the palm of her hand faced out. She got her eyes closed. I could tell she's praying, and her hand is pointed towards me. So I thought, would you please stop that? And all of a sudden, I just thought it, and she turns her hand, and it goes away. Well, I freaked out. I'd never experienced anything like that before. And my friend Dan, he had knew that I had stopped talking. He was sitting back smiling. And he's like, yeah, she does that. I said, you live with that? I freaked smooth out and never experienced anything like that before. And I'm not in conspiracy theory or anything. I've always enjoyed logic and reason, and but I'm just telling you like it was. And his wife comes out. His wife isn't Jessie, was in the house. She comes out, and she's coming out with some tea or something she was drinking, and she just calmly goes, yeah, she does that. And no, she said you'll get used to it. But that's the conversation that went on. I freaked out. So, but that's not what brought me to. I guess it wasn't something that changed me, but there's something that it reminded me of something that happened to me when I was in the Marines that I always pushed back. And it brought back something I'd brought up as kind of a story, but I didn't tell too many people because I wonder what they think. But I remember back when I was in the Marines, we were out in the mountains, this Cheyenne Mountain, I was in the infantry, and we go out there and we practice whatever it is. If you're going to be, they got to get you ready to fight in the snow, in the desert, wherever, jungle, mountains. And this was a mountain training, called them a crest. And we go out and do patrols in the mountains, and we do helicopter operations and all kinds of stuff just to practice it. And I remember we were going in this night patrol. And this This thing, I did not like talking about this. I didn't understand it because, I was kind of a fraidy cat. I mean, I sometimes I could turn it into a story, but so we were out there doing a patrol, and it was dark, but it was nighttime, middle of the night. But there's a full moon, and I remember I could see off into the mountains. For it was so clear, I could see the next range over. It was so bright outside. There were pine trees and everything. I remember we stopped on to check our map, and I'm sitting here. Just standing around. I remember my buddy VH. Now we're not in a combat zone, so they're not super disciplined on like smoking cigarettes and stuff like that. But you're not supposed to be lighting up at nighttime and stuff. So he decided, but he's going to because we're in the United States. It's not nothing bad's going to happen except maybe some officers see us and say something. But he going to smoke a cigarette while they're checking the map. And he's smoking a cigarette, and I'm looking, and something's coming up behind him, and it was moving kind of weird, but I didn't really think about it. I was just looking at it, and it comes up behind him, and it's like it's gliding along the ground, like it's sliding. I know I'm going to get in some weird stuff here, but I'm just going to tell you like it happened, and so it comes up behind him, and I'm kind of paying attention to it now. I'm like, what? I thought maybe it's a person coming up or something, but when it got up behind him, now VH is about 6 foot tall, maybe a little over that, and when it came up behind him, it was well over a foot over him, and it was dark, like kind of like a shadow. And I couldn't believe what I was seeing. I'm like, this is trying to clear my eyes and stuff. Like, what? I didn't know what to think. I just like, well, this can't be real. That's what first thing I was, this can't be real. And I was like, almost like pinching myself awake. Like, I couldn't believe it. And I thought, well, man, I'm just seeing things. And then it was taller than him, and it was completely blacker than shadow. No, nothing. And everything. And it looks down at him, and I'm like, oh man, so it turned its head. I'm like, oh boy, this is getting really real. And so I was just stunned. I was just standing there, and all of a sudden these arms stretch out of it and go to wrap around it. I know this sounds something, but go to wrap around him, and I didn't even think about it. I pulled my weapon, and I pointed at it, and I said, stop. which I remember VH's face. He just about dropped his cigarette. He opened his mouth up, and somehow that cigarette, you remember weird stuff when times like this. So I remember, he opened his mouth, and his cigarette didn't fall out of his mouth. It was just hanging there. And he's like, my nickname was Ace, because nobody could say my name, Acevedo, but they call me Ace. So he's like, he said my name, and he's looking up, and I'm looking at this thing, and it stopped. And this really because I had said something, and it had looked at me, and it had looked at me, and that was really startling, because now this is sentient, this is intelligent, and I'm like, and I just couldn't believe it. It was just didn't. Well, of course I didn't have anything to say. I wasn't really afraid. It was more just reaction. And so then it looked at me for a while, and I looked at it, and I just had my gun, but it must have thought, well, maybe it, and then it started doing it again. It looked down at VH, and it started wrapping its arms up again. I immediately said, stop. Well, then it locked on me like a target. It could see, it knew that I could see it. And I was like, that's when its attention's on me. Then I was like, I remember I was not going to take my gun down at that point. So I remember Corporal Long, but this time other people had noticed. And So Corporal Longman comes over. He's whispering in my ear, what's up, Ace? I was like, I'm surprised he didn't tackle me, but he probably didn't know if I had rounds. I didn't have any rounds in the gun. I wasn't, or nothing like that. But either way, it was serious thing in the Marines. You don't point no weapon unless you plan on shooting something. So it's serious. And I didn't think about that. I was just didn't want to. So I was trying to talk to Corporal Longman and keep my eye on this thing. And then in the brief second, I turned my eye to talk to Corporal Longman. I turned back and it was gone. That thing had gone. And it had moved quick. I didn't know where it went. It's like, but then I was like, I let my guard down. I was all shook up. But I mean, I wasn't emotional, obviously, but it was just, the adrenaline was going out. So Corporal Longman, of course, he gets on the radio, say, hey, we're coming back. We're coming back. I was like, so on the walk back, I remember I was like, oh boy, I'm going to get in trouble. They're going to call the MPs. I'm going to go to jail. I'm going to get locked up in the funny farm. Something bad's going to happen to me. The whole way. But then I had, but I could feel something. And it wasn't like that thing that happened back with Bonnie in the river. It was something heavy. And it was a presence that was that was like fear, but heavy, but crushing. Like I couldn't, and there was this, I felt defeated. I felt like there were things that went through my mind that I couldn't imagine. This presence that was there. And I remember they took me to go see like 2 o'clock in the morning, 3 in the morning. They took me to go see Gunny Rummage. Now he decides what's going to happen to you. And I'm like, oh boy. So I was going to tell him, it's just me and him. They took me, and I kind of told him, but I didn't really want to get into it. I just said I saw something. I tell him how I was feeling and stuff. He's asking some questions. And I told him a little bit, but I didn't want to get too far in it because then for sure I thought I'd get sent to the funny farm. So surprisingly, he goes and tells me that he's gonna send me to the chaplain. So they went and woke this chaplain up, and they woke this chaplain up, and he's a nice man. He sat here and he talked to me, and now I didn't go to church. I didn't read the Bible or anything like that. Now if I prayed, it was like break glass in case of fire. Like you need, like something really bad's happening, you got nothing else to do, you're going to pray, and maybe if there's something out there, something good will happen. Well, this wasn't like, there was this guy, he sat down and he had his peace about him. And I talked to him about the way I was feeling and stuff. And he asked me if I believed in Jesus, I ever read the Bible. I said, well, kind of. I didn't even really get into all that. I think he kind of knew. But he asked if I would read with him. And it was very quiet. We did some reading out of Romans, and I had this part of me was so defeated. I want to hope. If you're real, please help me. Because whatever it was that was in me was all those fears I had come to me. It was bad. So I said what I said, and I read what he was reading in hope. And very gently, he put his hand on my leg, and then something happened. When he did that, and I called out to Jesus quietly, something happened that wasn't quiet. It was like getting hit by the brightest light. I wasn't there. In my mind, everything was, I was somewhere else. I was in a light, and I was a light that was of love and peace. I mean, it was like being in the middle of the sun times 10, but it was all love. It was all gentleness and peace. And that whatever it was gone in an instant. It was completely gone. And I could stay in this light forever. And I knew I'd never want to be anywhere else. And it was a place where it was pure love. And and it was like lightning when it came. And he wasn't like the holy rollers I used to make fun of on TV who would grab somebody and start shaking. No, this is the real deal. And I was like, I didn't know it happened. It wasn't, I was calm. It wasn't no shock or nothing. It wasn't no coaching. It was quiet. It was private. It was real. And I remember I came out of it and the sun was out. Well, first of all, when I saw things again, first thing I saw was this chaplain's face, and he had the biggest smile because he knew that something had happened. He had this huge look on his face, like anticipation. He knew I was coming back from somewhere. And when I saw his face, he knew and I knew. And we had nothing, but we just laughed. It was the longest, most sincere laugh of my whole life. Because he knew and I knew. I didn't have to say one word to him. And he just smiled and he took this Bible and he wrote in it. You'd think I'd be a believer forever after that. You'd think I'd that. But something in me wasn't ready. So I lived a whole lifetime. And I might, with that in the back of my mind, but I didn't know. I tried to convince myself it was this or that, but I didn't know. But here I was at my friend's house, and this woman had a river of what I experienced in the Marines. And I'd never thought that was like my spooky ghost story. But here it is coming out of this woman's hand. That same feeling. The same. And I never felt it again, never thought I would. And so I started reading, and I thought the Bible would be judgmental. I thought the Bible would be so many of these things that modern Christianity says it is. Well, not says it is the way it acts, and the way I perceived it was completely different than what it actually is. It's that love that I felt. That's what's in that book. It's like all the things that I said to my kids out of love, it's in there. And truth. And and then and that's what it's all about. It's about love. It's about all those people that you run into in your life that when you see them, like that guy at the bridge, you're going to talk to him. Because it matters. It matters to not be afraid. It matters to let love rule you and not fear. And the social fears of getting up and talking to somebody when they're having a bad day, or what people think, and what, the kindness, everybody perceives kindness as weakness in this world. And kindness, that's everything. Kindness and love. Not everybody's on their YouTube and escaping in their phones, and the world doesn't want us to look at each other, doesn't want us to love each other, talk to each other, be there for each other. We're all getting separated. It's too hard to watch what people are going through. I guess I better end it here on my batteries at 5%. But I want to tell you guys, it's all about love. You read that book with love, And I got some stories for you. He will show you 100% it's real, and it is about love. Don't be afraid of it. Don't be afraid to love. Don't look. I'm telling you, there's two versions of that book. One of them can be read with fear, and one of them can be read with love. And once I read it with love, there's no place for fear. And it's a different book. And most of the world can't see the message that's in it. But it's real. I'm going to end with a prayer. Heavenly Father, I pray that my friends, my family, receive this message with love and truth. In Jesus' name, amen. Well, I love you guys, and I'll talk to you later. Goodbye.